What's up, guys? This is Brent with Western Equipment. Now, let's go ahead and jump right on in and start talking about some of the differences between John Deere and Kubota compact track loaders. So we'll start out here on the outside of the machine and then move into the cab. What we're going to be looking at is just differences between the makes of these models. We're not necessarily comparing this model to this model. We're just comparing overall features that you're going to see from Kubota to John Deere. So the first thing that we're going to start with is the undercarriage. Now, when we're talking about undercarriage, we're talking about the track systems if you're not familiar with the terminology. So there are going to be two main differences that we're looking at here on the John Deere versus the Kubota. First thing is that on a John Deere, the undercarriage is going to be a bolted on unit. So if you look here on the back side of the track, you're actually going to see where this whole entire track unit is bolted onto the machine. Whereas if we go over to the Kubota, you're going to see that this unit is welded on. Now, some people have preferences for either or. One thing that I will say is that by having that bolted on unit, if you do happen to have issues with your undercarriage, it's a whole lot easier to service that unit with a bolted on unit than it is with a welded on. Now, there is going to be arguments though that you do want a welded on just for the carefreeness of having that, knowing that's attached to your machine, and this could be the case. Now, the second main difference between these two undercarriages is looking at this rear idler. So looking down here at the bottom rear idler on the track system, what you're going to have on the John Deere is this double flanged idler. So what this does is that keeps the notches of that track right in between the center of that idler, just like it does in the front, making sure that you have good stability on the front and rear. Now, whenever you go over to the Kubota, what you're going to see on that rear idler is you are going to see a single flange idler that goes in between the center of that track rather than holding the center of that track into it. So what you might see with a single idler system is a little faster wear, little less power to the ground, and a little less grip on the track. Whereas here, whenever we have that double flange idler, we're talking about a lot smoother pressure. We're spreading out the weight of that machine a little more evenly on that rear idler than we are on a single idler system over on the Kubota. Next, let's talk about serviceability from the rear of the machine. Now, as we know, with skid steers, the engine is at the rear of the machine, so all of our service points, for the most part, are back here at the rear. So on the Kubota, what you're going to have right here, over on the left-hand side, you're gonna have this one big swinging door here that is going to swing open like that. And then we are going to have this top hood here that raises up, and no opening side panels on the side. So if we take a look in here from the top, we can see a few of our service points. We can see our air filter housing. We can see our engine oil fill here on top. And then after that, our cooling package is somewhat in the way back here, but this can be moved. We do have to have a couple of sets of tools to be able to remove some bolts down at the bottom to be able to swing this out and then swing the top out to be able to get to the rest of our filters. You're also going to see that your battery is over here to the right hand side next to this cooling package, and so therefore you do have some things that are going to be in the way of getting to that battery, making it not as accessible as maybe you would like. So just keep in mind, whenever you're looking at the back of these machines for service, not only do we have to open up your back door in this top hood, but we also have to swing out our cooling package to be able to get to all of those other necessary things. Now, first thing that we want to do whenever we get into the John Deere and we're wanting to do engine service, this is going to open up as well. We are going to have our top hood here that is going to raise up to give us access to some things. Now, we can also get more access by getting and opening these side panels. So next thing that we're going to want to do, hop in the machine, raise that boom all the way up. And then once we have the boom raised up, then we are able to easily take off our side panel doors. We have a door here for our battery that we can remove, and the side panel over here on the right hand side. And then once we have this opened up, we have the whole machine wide open where we can get to all the necessary filters, all of our cooling units, and to our battery very, very easily. Now, when we're talking about servicing these machines, some of the things that we're going to need to do take place underneath the cab. So there is going to be a difference here whenever we're looking at the John Deere versus Kubota in that aspect as well. On the John Deere, whenever we need to get underneath the cab, we are going to have the boom raised up, have it locked out, which can be all done by one person. And then from here, I can get an 18mm socket, remove two nuts, from this machine and then be able to raise this cab up to get underneath to whatever we need to service underneath. Then over here on the Kubota, if I'm needing to do service on this machine, I do have to have the cab down on the ground. Then I can remove those bolts and be able to raise that cab up. So we cannot do both sets of service at the same time on these machines. Over here on the Deere, we can have the boom raised up, open everything up, raise the cab, do all that service all at once. Over here on the Kubota, if we're needing to service underneath the cab, we do have to have that loader down, be able to raise that cab, do that service, close that cab back down, then be able to raise that loader and do any other service that's going on underneath the machine or around the machine. We cannot do both things at once on this machine. All right, next let's talk about auxiliary hydraulics. So over here on the Kubota, what you're gonna have is you are gonna have a set of 5 different couplers on this machine. What you're going to have is a set of high flow, a set of standard flow right here, and then you are going to have your case drain for those high flow attachments. You're also going to have your electrical outlet here on top. Pretty standard, pretty basic setup. One thing though is that you do have a little bit more to maintenance here on the Kubota, being as that you are going to have a standard set and a high flow set, and then you're also going to have lines that run from these couplers along the inside of this boom, running down the length of the machine, then down to your hydraulic block. Now with the Deere, what you're going to see is one single set of couplers. So those couplers are going to be set up to run either high flow or standard, meaning that you are only going to have one set of couplers for every attachment that you run. You're also going to have a less amount set of couplers to service on your machine or to keep clean, or if you have any damage, you have one less set over there. You are still going to have your case drain over there on the Deere, and then you're going to have your electrical outlets. But one thing that is going to be different is that your lines for those couplers are actually going to be made into the boom to where they are more protected on that Deere. Now, keep in mind, over here on the Kubota, they are on the inside, so they are going to be protected from most things, but we all know how things go with these machines. When we're working construction, we could have those things that get in there, damage those lines. So I would say it is an upper hand to have those lines inside the frame of the machine over on the Deere, as opposed to the outside over here on the Kubota. All right, so before we hop inside the cabs to talk about the differences inside, let's talk about one of the most controversial topics between these two machines, which is going to be the doors. So we'll start over here with the door. What you're going to have is a fully sealed swing open door here on the Deere. Now, one of the big things that is said about having this swing open door is if your boom is partially up, or if it is in the way, if it has stopped, it is in the way of that door, you cannot get out of your front door. But as we know, there are release handles here on the inside of this door that you can open those up, take that door off if you're in a situation where you need to get out and your boom is raised to where you cannot open this. And then of course you also are going to have other exits on this machine, like a rear exit here. I've actually done a video on using that rear exit, and I've also done a video on how to replace these handles on this door if you happen to have to use those. So I'll make sure to leave links to those down in the description below where you can check those out. Now, once we move over to the Kubota, what you're going to have is a slide open overhead door. So whenever we go to get in this machine, we're going to push this button here at the bottom. That door is going to start to raise up. It locks into position up like that, and then it is completely out of the way of your boom. So if your boom is midway up, all the way down, your door is going to be able to open and close no matter what, and that is a perk. But one thing that I would say is that by having this sliding door, you are not getting a fully pressurized cab, because it is not able to always make a great seal with the sealing material that is around the door. Now, whether this is a big deal to you or not, may not be. You're still going to have HVAC units in both of these machines. You're still going to be able to get heat and air in both of these machines. This is mainly going to be a preference thing. But one thing that I would point out is that whenever you do have this sliding door that goes up like this, once you are getting out of the machine, if this is locked up and into place, then you do have a hard time getting it pulled down. So you have to make sure and leave it a little bit loose whenever you're getting out of the machine so that you can grab it and pull it down. And then also, whenever it is raised up, you are going to lose about 6 to 8 inches of headspace once you're inside the machine. All right, so now let's go ahead and get inside both of these cabs and talk about some of the differences getting in and while we're sitting in the cab. All right, so getting into the cab of the Deere, I really like the step here. You have steps on the bucket, you have steps on the quick attach, step on the crossbar, step before we're going in, and then into the machine. So once we get in, we have a nice floorboard here with plenty of foot room going forward. We've got plenty of visibility even with the door shut here. Once we shut the door here, we've got good visibility going all the way around. Once we pull our lap bar down, we have in the machine, we'll notice that we have sight going out the top. We're gonna have a rear view mirror, our sight from the side. You notice that we have those slanted booms here on the side to help with visibility. That's also going to help with keeping material off of those booms, keeping buildup from building up on the side. You are going to have the slide open windows on these machines on either side here. And then what we're going to have when we look up is we're going to have all of our controls up here, our backup camera up here, and our radio. Everything that we need control wise is going to be up on this machine, other than our joysticks, of course, and then one switch here, which is going to be for our 2-speed transmission, but that can also be controlled by the trigger over here on the left hand side. So this machine is going to have the EH controls. So what you're going to have is this panel up here in the right, where we'll simply turn this machine on. And we're going to have switchable controls in this machine. So if we need to change the sensitivity on something, if we need to put on such things as ride control, if we need to do self-leveling on our bucket, we need to change the sensitivity of those joysticks or change the pattern, everything can be done right here on this machine because we have those EH controls, which is electric over hydraulic. Now, what we're going to see is that over in the Kubota machine, we're going to have a lot less controls, a lot less accessibility, a lot less things that we can change because that machine is going to be ran off of a pilot valve system. Now, one thing that I will give the Kubota is, as we see, once we start getting into that machine, we're going to have a lot more room going in. We're going to have a little bit more room on the sides and a little bit more headroom than we do in this machine. But overall, visibility wise, you're going to have a little bit better visibility out of this Deere with those slanted booms on the side, and just with the overall build of the machine, you will have that better visibility. Now, once we're done in the machine and we're ready to get out, one thing that I like is that once we swing our door out, we have a good open path here to be able to get out. We've got grab handles here that are on the inside. So whenever you need to get out of this machine, you have grab handles in plenty of places here to be able to get out and be comfortable and feel safe getting out of the machine. All right, now getting into the Kubota. Like we showed before, we've got this handle here on the door. We're gonna raise up. And not only do we have to open that, but then we have to push up to get that door up and out of the way. Our steps here, you're a little more limited. You've got a good gap right there in between. You want to make sure to not get your foot stuck in. So we're going to put our foot up. We've got grab handles on the outside on either side here that we can grab onto. Now, one thing that I will say is you do have a lot wider opening on this Kubota when getting in, being as that you have that square door going all the way around. You do have a little larger opening, so for larger guys like me, I kind of enjoy that. Now, we talked about before the headspace issue. If I look up here, I'm seeing that this glass is right here above my head. If I go to try to close this door down, once I close that down, I've got quite a bit more headroom here. You'll also notice, and I don't know if you can tell here from the audio, we are a lot more echoey in this machine. We're not going to have as much acoustic in this machine. And like I talked about before, with this square door, this is not a fully pressurized cab like we have over on the John Deere. Now, whenever we're looking at controls on this machine, one thing that you'll notice is you do not have an overhead lap bar. So what you're going to have are these bars that come in over here on either side. Once we have these on, our control panels are right down here. Then we're going to have our key switch, a couple more switches over here. So we'll go ahead and turn this machine on. Once for on, go ahead and start that up. Now we're going to have a backup camera over here to our left down low. One thing that I don't like about this is kind of as we are today with the sun gleaming in, sometimes that gets a little bit hard to see there. So I like that up just a little bit higher like we usually have in the Deere. But then our radio is way back here to our left. Now, one other thing that I want to point out while we're over here looking at the left is you see air vents there on the left, air vents here on the left, and here down low you have a couple more. But if we look over here to the right, we have no air vents on the right hand side. So all of your air is coming from that left hand side. Now, this may not be a big deal, but if you are one of those workers that's going to be working in this machine all day long, whether it be in hot conditions, cold conditions, you're going to want to make sure that you have that air evenly distributed, not only for your comfort but also for your safety, to make sure that if you're having to defrost windows, that you're getting defrost on all of those windows evenly. So I believe that having that air system only on one side of the machine is a little bit of an issue, maybe not a huge one, but definitely one that you want to check out, because if we go back over to the John Deere, what you're going to see is air units on all four corners of that machine, able to get all of those windows and be able to keep you as the operator comfortable. Now, when we're ready to get out of this machine and we turn it off, we raise up on our two lap bars here. Once we are going to open this machine, this is going to be a two-handed mechanism. So since I'm holding the camera, I've got to go two different times, and as soon as I open that, that is coming towards my head. So as you can see right there, if I move any farther forward, I am hitting my head on that glass, as we can see right there. So once I raise this up and get this up and into position, there is where it would be, right there up top. Once we have this machine fully latched and pushed all the way up, like we have it here, where it's in place, I cannot pull down from the outside. So once I get out of this machine, if I happen to raise that door all the way up to where it's in its locked position, I am gonna have to get back in and release this lever here and this lever here just a little bit to be able to let that door loose to where I can close it. Now, getting out of the machine, like I said, I really like that large opening. One thing I don't like is that your only handles are on the outside of the machine. We don't have any here on the inside. So if you need to grab to help pull yourself up out of the seat, you are going to have to reach all the way outside of the machine on either side to be able to stand up and then step out of the machine. Now, the last two things that I'll leave you with are not going to be technically features on this machine, but they could make a big difference whenever you're looking at the difference in these brands and trying to decide which one you want to go with. The first one is going to be lifting capacity. So if we're looking at our top of the line here in the Kubota, if we're looking at an SVL 95-2 or an SVL 97-2, you're going to max out lifting capacity right around 5,000 pounds. And if we're looking at a John Deere, even if we're looking at the second step down on the 331G, that is going to max out at about 7,500 pounds. That's with a load on with forks on these machines, not with buckets. So that's one thing to consider. Make sure that we're looking at those lifting capacities and making sure that if we're even told that one can outlift the other, that we go and get in both of those machines, make sure that they're going to do the lifting that we need to do on that job site or for that operation that we're going to be doing, to make sure we don't get ourselves in a bind with those lifting capacities. Now, the last one that we need to touch on is cost of ownership. Now, this is one that gets overlooked a lot of the time because people seem to think, oh, I'm going to have to service this machine and that machine, so cost of ownership, and does it really matter? But it does matter whenever you're talking about the long run of things. Now, I've got a chart here that's going to show the difference between two of these machines, one John Deere, one Kubota, and it shows that it's going to cost about 50% more in the cost of ownership over 3,000 hours on a Kubota. Now, that's going to be based on the amount of filters and the amount of service that you have to do on these machines within those 3,000 hours to show that you can actually save money on your services by buying the John Deere. Now, of course, everybody's going to say, oh, this is a comparison video, or this guy's a John Deere dealer. He's trying to steer you away from the Kubota and only go to the John Deere. Well, of course, I would love for you to buy a John Deere, but really what I'm trying to do here is just to point out some differences between these machines so that whenever you're going into this buying process, you have that information and you can go in already knowing what to expect before you make that trip to the dealership. So guys, I hope this video helped you out. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, we just ask you to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also guys, if you are needing any more information on these John Deere machines, make sure to go check out the rest of our channels. We have tons of other information on these. And as always guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey guys, make sure to check out this cool video and this one. Buy your parts right up here and subscribe right here.